When you work in education leadership, you don't get off at 5 o'clock. Your mind is always on the clock, thinking of ways to solve problems for your students, parents, and teachers. On the Clock is your go-to podcast to learn valuable insights from education leaders across the United States. I'm your host, Todd Dallas Lamb, former White House appointee to the U.S. Department of Education, and we are now on the clock. Welcome back to On the Clock. I am your host, Todd Dallas Lamb, and today our topic, and we always touch on technology. I don't think you can escape American education without touching on some form of ed tech, and today I thought we'd bring on an expert in that world. Bill Bass is someone I've been connecting with at conferences over the summer, and a little bit about Bill. There's a lot to admire about your efforts and how you've been received, Bill. You're an award-winning educator, former English teacher. You now serve as the innovation coordinator for Instructional Technology, Information, Library, Media, Federal Programs. Jesus, that's a lot. In the Parkway School District in St. Louis. As an inspirational speaker, writer, professional developer, you focus on systematic and sustainable integration of technology into classrooms at all grade levels. And you've got 3 books that you've written. Bill Bass, welcome to On the Clock.
Well, hey, thanks so much, Todd. I appreciate being here.
I saw you in Salt Lake City at the ERDI conference, and then we were supposed to connect at the PowerSchool Edge conference, and our schedules got mixed up. But in getting ready for that, I wanted to just connect with you in the few days afterwards. What were you doing in Seattle for Edge?
So for Edge, I was there. So I've done a few things with PowerSchool over the last couple of years. One of them is I'm on their on an advisory board for their impact report that they put out every year. They do a research study on kind of the state of education. And what's cool about it, and what I like about it, is it's not super. It definitely, it's PowerSchool. They have, it's branded with all of that, but they also do a really good job of just kind of removing themselves from it, and really kind of, it's like their gift to education. And so that's one of the things that I was there. Then I was also there as a speaker, and did a session around some technology commitments that we have for our district, and along with the folks from One Ed Tech, and recognizing why standards are important in technology.
It's an unusual conference in that I don't know of very many companies that host their own conference and bring partners in from around the country. I was really taken by the level of commitment for people to come out for that, and then you start diving into the depth and breadth of all the things that they do. They really touch every aspect of our schools across the country and even across the world.
Yeah, they really do. They have a broad reach, and continue to broaden that. But I do think that their commitment to education is partly why there are so many people who will attend those kind of events, and and really want to learn about how to use their products better, certainly. But also, there's a lot of thought leadership that happens there, and that's really the biggest thing that interests me in that kind of setting.
I'm always reverting back to my own childhood memory of school, and the technology guy when I was growing up was the guy that came in and put the projector together, and then we'd watch like Charlie Chaplin films or videos made during like World War II that were available to the district. It's a hell of a lot more complicated now, isn't it?
No, it's significantly different. I remember those same things. You wheel the big TV in, and on the cart, and if the VCR doesn't work or the Laserdisc doesn't work, then we got to call a guy because nobody knows what to do with it, right? And so, we're definitely in a different realm now. And you said it earlier, but really, technology and education are inextricable at this point. There's so much need to provide these kind of experiences for kids that we want to have, and technology can enhance that and enhance their learning over time.
I was thinking about it as I was preparing for our chat. There's certain directors within an organization like a school district that are really kind of on an island. I always liken it to football coaches. Usually it's the offensive or defensive coordinator that becomes a superintendent eventually, and that's always been the case. generally speaking, with curriculum directors are your most logical. But I noticed, David Haglund from Pleasanton, when I first met him, he was the technology director in Santa Ana, California. Are you seeing more and more of your kind moving up to the top spot? I would imagine that you can't be unsophisticated anymore as a superintendent without having a pretty deep well of knowledge regarding technology.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's definitely a trend, and I think that, I guess if you want to be a superintendent for very long, you have to you have to have that kind of an understanding. But I also think, more and more technology directors are now coming from the classroom, and we're seeing that trend where school districts are looking for folks to become tech directors that have the education experience behind them because it provides a education isn't about boxes and wires. It never has been. It never was. And so if you have a tech director, you still have to have somebody who is knowledgeable in that realm, but it doesn't have to be, your typical industry guy who comes in and is going to make sure that the network is stable and all that. We need those people, but that's not the role of the tech director anymore. It really is around vision, and it really is around, direction. And when you get those kind of experiences, then yeah, moving up in an organization and becoming a superintendent at some point is kind of a logical sequence of events that can happen. That I think that's where the sophistication of technology has really changed for us, because I do think we do have a greater sense of what we need out of technology and what we need out of the folks that are running our technology in our school districts.
So let's talk about your vision a little bit. I was rolling through some themes that I have. If you spend enough time in American education, for periods of time, there are buzzwords and themes. I happen to have a personal relationship with at the federal level with No Child Left Behind.
Hmm.
And of course, we went through Common Core, social and emotional learning. It seemed like you couldn't find a product that didn't have some projected contact point with social and emotional learning, or as we now call it in some places, resiliency and grit. Right.
Right.
These are all themes, and in the last since COVID, mental health has popped up as a theme, but boy, AI in education really sprung up rather quickly with ChatGPT, didn't it?
Oh yeah. No, it definitely. And it kind of it took so many people off guard. Like in schools, it didn't take the companies that were out there and that are kind of connected to the technology realm. Um, it wasn't a big surprise. Like they didn't know that it was coming then, but they did know that it was coming. Like AI is not a new thing. It just kind of took the world by storm there, last year, and it really now we have tons of companies popping up, and everyone has AI. Everyone, if you don't have AI in your product, people are going to take a second look at you because it's so prevalent in, especially specifically in ed tech, but even in curriculum products and all that. If it touches technology and you don't have AI as a part of it, there's some skepticism that is starting to creep in now.
That's interesting. I was introduced to it by my son, then a junior in high school, who showed me how he could write a paper in 4 seconds on a topic that he knew nothing about,
Yeah.
which is, as a parent, an older, 56-year-old guy, it kind of scares the hell out of me that he's able to put that together. And in gathering some of his friends for a barbecue at our house after they graduated this last year, I asked how many of them survived on writing essays through Chat GPT, and many hands went up.
Sure.
That's a concern that I think parents have. Do you not have a concern with regards to learning, and how do we confirm that they are learning, and are there ways in which schools and teachers, my first thing, and I imagine teachers do this too, you've written a paper, it looks good, maybe too good.
Hmm.
I think I would have them defend that paper with some questions about the topic, wouldn't you?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a really straightforward strategy, right? And when we talk to teachers, when I talk to my teachers or teachers around the country, and we talk about the dangers of AI, and you know what? I fully admit it. AI has there are some things that will like freak us right out. I completely understand. It is not, my own kids. I have 20-year-olds. They're in college and they use ChatGPT all the time. Now, here's the thing: the kids that were going to cheat, you know, we're going to cheat anyway. It's not, like we made it more efficient with AI, but they were still going to cheat in some form or fashion, along the way. But I think what we can do, as a former English teacher, right? I remember this would, and my English teachers in my district and others, I I recognize that it is scary and there are super big challenges, but you know what? It's also an opportunity for us to know our kids as writers better than we did before, right? Because we were straight looking for just information in there and understanding of that information. Well, now, like I think that the idea of looking at process over product becomes more important. That final paper, um, you know, that listen, nobody told me how it was going to be when I had to grade 150 10-page papers. Like I didn't know when I started English. That wasn't part of my that was part of my training. But I also think, if I were more engaged with them, with my kids along the way, and understood them as writers and understood the process that they're going through, the process is where the learning happens. The paper itself at the end is not where the learn. It's like it's evidence. So maybe we need to shift the way we're thinking about our evidence. Maybe we need to shift the way we're thinking about our process along the way. And that final paper as the be all end all, maybe that doesn't track anymore. And so I think we're in this spot. We have an opportunity, forced opportunity. I mean, let's be clear, but we have an opportunity to kind of change the way we think about assessment, change the way we think about where kids learn and how they learn along the way. I think those are key points that the fear kind of overrides sometimes, and I think that's something that we need to kind of keep our eye on along the way.
You mentioned the value of having vision as a technology director. What do you look into the future with regards to AI and see what's on the radar that most people aren't even thinking about right now?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that ChatGPT is one example, and it's just the example that kind of garnered our imagination, right? You have Gemini, everybody has their own little large language model. The thing that I think we need to recognize and understand is that 5 years from now, we're not going to have standalone products like ChatGPT. I mean, we will, but most of the things that we use in schools and most of the things that we use for learning are going to have AI embedded in it. And so it's not going to be this website that you go to generate a paper. It's going to be helps along the way, support structures along the way that are built into the tools that we're giving to our students and asking them to use. And I think we're also going to see a switch from, we at one point Wikipedia was the worst thing imaginable, and before that we had calculators that were going to be bad, and way back in the day we were worried about kids writing things down because we were going to lose the art of storytelling and oration. And so I think what we're going to see is that AI is going to be embedded. We're not even going to know it's there. It's just going to be part of the world that we live in, and it's kind of all, I don't want to say all encompassing, but it's going to touch us in ways that we don't even know. And we're going to do a better job of understanding information. And we're going to have to teach our kids to do a better job of fact checking and understand that conversation. You mentioned asking them questions and having them be follow-up questions to a paper so that they can demonstrate their understanding in multiple ways. So it's not just a paper anymore. It's not just a presentation. You have to be able to defend those things in order for me as your teacher to actually know that you understand whatever the concept is. And AI can help us with that. It doesn't have to be. I mean, it is a big scary thing, but it doesn't always have to be a big scary thing.
Another theme was, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, was every kid having a device.
Yeah.
And now what are we talking about? We're talking about capturing that device in the form of a smartphone before they walk into school. And several districts around the country are either have banned smartphones in the classroom or
Yeah.
discussing that. What say you on that topic?
Well, I don't think, ultimately, I don't think phones are the problem. And we can talk about there's all kinds of problems that we may have, that kids may have. And, I understand that we do have, we have kids that are hurting right now, and we have kids that need different levels of support and different kinds of support. I fully recognize that those are things, but the way that I feel about smartphones is, first of all, it will still remain their primary form of communication as soon as they walk out of school. So by banning cell phones, what we're really actually doing is probably taking the relevance out of school for them. That's a big statement. I fully recognize, but as we think about it, like, that's one of the unintended consequences. When kids come to school, yeah, we want them to learn the things we want them to learn. We have subjects, we have curriculum, we have scope and sequence, right? We have all those things, but what we're really trying to do is help to prepare them to be good at life. And taking away or removing a primary form of communication, I'm not sure how that is going to assist them in the long run at being good at life. How are they going to learn how to self-regulate with their cell phone if we don't give them an opportunity to make mistakes in front of us where we can help them? Like, those are things. So what we're doing, I think, what we're doing is we're making our lives easier as adults because we're worried about the children, right? But we have so many things that our kids are worried about, and yeah, cell phones are probably part of it. Social media is probably part of it. But I would rather us, from on the technology side, I would rather us help our students be able to manage their own devices, manage their own urges and things like that. Because if they're not getting into school, are they getting it at home? It's hard to say. And so if we're trying to help every kid succeed in different ways, I'm not sure that banning cell phones is going to help us actually accomplish that.
I could do a breakout session and argue both sides of this.
Absolutely, yep.
I think I'd be pretty good at both sides. I listen to a lot of history on audiobooks or podcasts. And the aforementioned Wikipedia page that you mentioned, I'm constantly going to that to see what did this dude look like back in 1865, if there's any artwork of this person. And I do a lot of learning on this darn thing. I'm not perfect like everybody else. I waste a lot of time on it as well.
Sure. Yeah.
But it is a primary source for learning if used correctly, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and again, if we don't provide kids with the experience or the exposure or the opportunity to understand that, then where are they going to get it? And that's, I agree. I think I could argue both sides as well. Where I tend to land, though, is I really want to help our kids be prepared for life outside of the four walls of schools, because I think that's where it matters, right? When they're in front of us, we can do all kinds of things. We can bribe them, we can control them, like we have the teacher toolbox, right? But as soon as they walk out and they're making their own decision, I think that's when it matters more.
Your school district is in St. Louis. Let's ask some important questions.
All right.
What's the barbecue place of choice for Bill Bass if you had
to go?
Man. I mean, I know Pappy's is a legendary spot.
I was going to say Pappy's is pretty good. There's also this place called Nubby's. It's in the strip mall, and they have pizza and they have barbecue, and it is stellar.
Oh, well, Nubby's, if you're in St. Louis, look up Nubby's. Pappy's Salt and Smoke out by the campus is really good. Wash U, which is one of America's great schools. Bill Bass, thank you so much for being on the clock. We really appreciated the conversation. I hope you, as we're taping this, you're probably in getting back to school mode. It's about a month away, so I wish you well in reconvening your students back to the schools and all the challenges that you have to face. Thank you so much.
Hey, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Todd.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe to our YouTube channel and find us on your favorite podcast platform. On the Clock is part of the Strategos Podcast Network. To view the entire lineup of shows, please visit us at strategosgroup.com. See you next time.